Hello, my sweet strangelings. I hope you're getting into the spooky season. It's certainly making things a little tricky over here, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. First, I just wanted to quickly apologize regarding last week. I know there wasn't a podcast out, and I've been trying to stay incredibly consistent with this stuff. At the beginning of the year, when I started making this podcast, one of the things that I was very open and vulnerable about was being consistent, being neurodivergent, trying to come up with a plan with, ensuring that I have an episode out, because I genuinely like talking about the paranormal, supernatural, strange phenomenon, and what better way to do this than with you guys in a podcast format, right? So anyway, but don't worry though, because in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be having some special guests on here. I'm really excited for the guests coming up here in the next couple of weeks. And just in time for spooky season. But I feel like here on this podcast, it's always spooky season. That's why you're listening. I also want to keep alternating between 1 week with a guest and 1 week with talking about strange subjects, sharing your scary stories on here. So if you ever want to write to me, don't forget, you can write to me at shareyourspookystory@gmail.com, or you can also join my Discord. It is a little bit of a smaller community on Discord. The more you join, the more that we can get a whole interaction going on, and we can talk about your scary stories on the Discord. So that's something that I really want for that and for us. We can discuss all kinds of strange phenomenon. And remember when we had Adrian or Aiden from Susto Podcast, and he talked about the urban legend of dancing with the devil. Today, we're keeping that devilish theme alive with something even more chilling: the devil's footprints. Yeah, just in time for October. So grab your tea. I have a tea here. And if you're watching me on Spotify or YouTube. So this is the Charlie Brown mug from the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown. And it's like the scene where he's like, I got a rock. And it says on the side of the handle of the mug. But you can see it better if you're on like YouTube or Spotify. Anyway, I just wanted to add this here in post because when I was recording this, I sounded very muffled. But grab your tea or your coffee. I'm more of a tea person myself, as you can see if you're over on Spotify and YouTube. And let's get cozy. Let's get into the spooky vibes. So the concept of the devil is fascinating, isn't it? Because everyone has their own version of what the devil looks like. Like just how we imagine dragons, right? If you ask somebody, draw a dragon, or what is your version of a dragon? Everyone has like a different color associated to that dragon. Some people might have a red dragon in mind. Some people may have a blue dragon in mind. You get the drift. So going back to the question, what does the devil mean to you? Like beyond the biblical sense. And what does it represent in the paranormal experiences? Today we're diving into that very question as we explore the mysterious sightings of the devil's footprints. As we go through the story, I want you to keep your own idea of the devil in mind. What could these mysterious signs be pointing to as we tell the story? And while you're holding onto your cup of tea or coffee, think about the cold seasons ahead. Because I know we're getting into the fall, but winter can be truly chilling. I mean, both fall and winter can be chilling. Just depends on where you live. You're probably going to be really envious when I say this. I live in Los Angeles, so snow feels like a very distant memory. But I grew up in states that had cold climate, believe me. Minnesota, Colorado. Yeah, there can be some pretty intense winters, freezing, unforgettable winters. I remember looking out the window as like the snow would just rest on that cement, fresh snow, very unforgettable. And I remember looking out the window at times when it was winter, and I was so eager as a kid to go outside and make snow angels and or like draw things in the snow. It was always like a fun blast, right? And even like as an adult living in these colder climates, whenever I would like take a walk or I would be doing errands and I would see the fresh snow, I would see remnants of little kids or other people having happy memories with the snow. But imagine something different. Like, what would be the opposite of that, right? So instead of those like playful memories, think of the eerie footsteps in fresh snow. Something even sinister. So we're going to go back to 1855 in England when mysterious hoof-like prints appeared in the snow. Many believe they were the devil's footprints. But were they really? So on February 7th and 8th of 1855 in England, snow had been falling for hours, and people in southern settlements between Topsham to Turkey, and believe me, I probably butchered this. Sorry to my UK listeners, but they started noticing something very strange. Very, very strange. Because over the course of these hours, mysterious hoof-like tracks appeared in the fresh snow, covering a distance of about 100 miles. I mean, that sounds pretty wild. 100 miles of these mysterious footprints. Oh my God. So then, because this was strange, the local newspapers even reported it around February 17th. Now, this is what they said. I'm going to quote it. Thursday night, February 8th, was marked by a heavy fall of snow, followed by rain and a boisterous wind from the east. In the morning, the frost had set in. Now, that sounds pretty normal, right? Like, obviously, that sounds like a normal winter, well, some normal winters, where it's so cold, things freeze. But then the next morning, people saw the ramblings of some busy and mysterious animal that had left tracks in places you wouldn't expect. On the rooftops of houses, narrow walls, courtyards, and even enclosed gardens. So, like, seriously, what was this thing looking for? And how could this thing get up in these places, right? They weren't normal footprints either. They looked like they came from a bipedal creature, meaning it walked on 2 legs. Not 4, but 2 legs. The steps were about 8 inches apart, sometimes as far as 14 inches, and they looked like the prints of a donkey's shoe. But wait for it. The tracks were continuous, meaning there wasn't a break in the snow where you would expect one. Now, that sounds pretty creepy, right? Like, what is this? And why is it everywhere? Like, imagine waking up and just seeing these mysterious footprints on a winter morning. Like, the last thing you want to wake up to, right? Or maybe you do. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't faze you. I don't know. Now, of course, as I said, this is all strange. What's even stranger is that the tracks appear to stop at the doors of several houses, almost as if whatever it was had been trying to peek inside these homes. At least that's how I interpret it. So can you imagine that? Because nope. For me, I'm like, no, don't even want to imagine it. I'm here by myself in this room. Don't imagine that. So, of course, naturally, people were freaked out. And since this was back in 1855 and superstition was very much alive and well, some thought it was the devil himself. Looking for who? I don't know. One of the key investigators of this strange phenomenon was the Reverend H.T. Ellacombe, and he noticed that these tracks covered thousands of marks over many miles. People were so alarmed that a group of local tradesmen even armed themselves with guns and sent the bloodhounds to track this. They even traced these footprints through gardens, villages, and even across rivers without breaking stride. So how could anything do that? What kind of creature could make tracks like that without obeying the laws of physics? How do you even begin to explain something like this? I mean, could this been really supernatural? I don't know. I guess we'll have to keep on looking into this. So some people tried to find natural explanations. Some suggested that maybe badgers were responsible since badgers placed their hind paws in the tracks of their front paws, making them look bipedal. But badgers don't have hooves, and they definitely couldn't leave tracks on rooftops. So for me, I'm kind of skeptical of this explanation. Other theories included birds with ice on their feet. Like what? Donkeys, or even animals that migrate, but none of these animals could account for all the strange features of the tracks. So honestly, like I said, some of these explanations are silly. So even years later, there were still no solid answers. So folklorists like Theo Brown revisited the case and became very skeptical, which is natural, right? Like if you were somebody in modern times reading about something from like 1850s, you're probably going to be very skeptical of what these settings are naturally, because with modern day science and, discovering new things, like we look at these things through a very skeptical lens. So it makes sense. So of course, Theo Brown said that maybe people have suggested that maybe people were exaggerating all of these things, which, even in like current strange phenomenon and cases, people tend to do that. So, okay, that checks out. I mean, people love a good mystery, right? But even with some exaggeration, there's still no clear explanation for what could have caused these footprints at the time. And here's where things get even more intriguing. Similar reports of strange tracks have appeared throughout history, even as far back as the 13th century. A chronicle recorded the appearance of strange hoofprints burned into the earth after a lightning storm on July 19th of 1205 took place. It's like the ground itself had been branded, giving rise to the legend of the devil's footprints. And there's even the case of a polar explorer, Captain Sir James Clark Ross, who recorded a bizarre sighting in May of 1840. It stated that the survey party landed in Kerguelen Island, again, I'm probably botching this up, near the South Pole, and reported seeing tracks that looked like they were made by a donkey. But there were no animals in the area, let alone a donkey. I mean, seriously, like a donkey near the South Pole, that sounds kind of bizarre, right? So, of course, it doesn't just stop there. On March 12th of 1855, the Illustrated London News reported similar hoof-shaped footprints seen on the hill of Pasigua, what would be modern-day Poland. Every year, these footprints supposedly appear in the snow, and they resemble the same hoof prints found in Devonshire Gardens. So it's like this strange phenomenon keeps popping up in different places and times, right? Like, interesting, right? So now that we've kind of covered this strange occurrence, let's get into the other strange theories behind the devil's footprints. Because honestly, I'm not sold on some of these explanations. And even I'm very much like, what is this? And I would love to see in person, what do these footprints look like for myself? So one theory suggests that maybe the footprints were made by an escaped kangaroo. Yes, a kangaroo, which, oh my God, have you seen those things? Especially the male ones, like punching people? No thanks. But anyways, so around the time that these prints had appeared, some kangaroos had escaped from a private zoo owned by Mr. Fish in Sidmouth. And since kangaroos are bipedal, they became suspects. But the prints didn't really match the size or shape of kangaroo tracks. So the theory quickly fell apart, which, honestly, compared to everything that I've said right now, I'm willing to side with the idea that perhaps kangaroos are likely the culprit of that. Maybe. I don't know. That's just something that, like, I'm listening to this. I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe that could be a thing. Or maybe another animal that escaped. But even then, like, could kangaroos be found in different, like, climbing up walls? Well, I guess they probably could. Even so, my other question with that is, why was this creature coming up to people's houses? That's another question I'd like to know. And so aside from the kangaroos, there's an even stranger theory, one that involves an experimental balloon. So writer Geoffrey Household claimed that a descendant of a worker from the Devonport dockyard told him about a classified project. Ooh, this is sounding like alien stuff almost. According to a source, on the night of February 7th, 1855, an experimental balloon accidentally got loose and its chain or mooring line dragged along the ground, supposedly creating the tracks. But here's the problem, and something that I just can't quite wrap my head around. How could like the chain of a balloon or the mooring line leave a uniform hoof-like prints? Like, that still doesn't add up. But then again, the other thing that pops up in my mind is Theo Brown's theory that people were exaggerating the story. But even then, again, I feel like what's really consistent are these hooves. So I'm willing to believe that despite all of that, that's the one thing that for sure everyone saw was these hoof-like prints. The other thing that I have a problem with this idea is that the wind wasn't even blowing in the right direction to move the balloon along the path where the prints have been found over this like 100-mile radius. So again, I'm just not willing to believe that. I mean, it's a good try, I suppose, but one that I'm not sold on. So what do you guys make of all of this? Because the more we dig into these theories, I have more questions. And it's almost like the more we try to explain it, the deeper this mystery gets and weirder it gets. Because it's almost like they're trying to find these answers that just don't seem to add up. Now, for me personally, I'm willing to think that it could be an animal of some kind, but based on everything that we touched base on, it just doesn't make sense. So my question for you, what do you think? Was it an escaped kangaroo, a wayward balloon, or something far more sinister, like the devil himself? Remember, I asked you, what did you think, or what do you have in mind of the devil? Because when I do a quick search on why does the devil have hoof prints, it says, the devil is often depicted with cloven hooves in Christian art because of the comparison of his hoof prints to a cloven hoof. And then, of course, it brings up the strange event that we talked about today. But here's the thing. The Bible doesn't describe Satan's appearance, but he's been depicted in Christian art with horns and cloven hooves, a tail, and unusually hairy legs since the 9th century. He's often shown naked and holding a pitchfork. So even then, right, in biblical sense, in religious context, we still don't know for sure what the devil looks like. And that's why I asked you guys, what is your idea of the devil? Because there's so many different depictions of that. And if he were to roam this earth, who was he looking for? And why would he choose? Because even in some theories, the devil can present himself in so many different ways. Aside from the artistic iconography of this horn creature, some people say that the devil can shapeshift and disguise himself to something as very pretty. So if that is the case, why would he convert himself, or why would he shapeshift into this hoof-like creature, right? I don't know. There's just so many questions even from that superstition. And here's the thing. The truth is we may never know what happened. And that's what makes these stories so fascinating. The mystery just keeps us coming back, wondering and questioning and speculating. But maybe that is the fun of it, right? Like, honestly, we just really talked about so many different theories that it's going to sit with me for a while. Whether it's a natural occurrence or something supernatural, and maybe the devil himself, my question for you is, what do you think? Do you believe in the logical explanations? Or do you lean more towards the paranormal? Let me know, and maybe we can keep on digging further into this. But as always, I hope that you enjoyed today's episode, and I invite you to do something nice. Give me 5 stars and share with a friend if you like this episode or if you like this podcast. If not, I do also just appreciate you hanging out with me and listening to this strange stuff with me. And also, just a heads up, I do want to start doing live podcasts, so stay tuned for that. I am thinking of doing them on a Friday night or a Sunday night. And then these can be more dedicated towards the strange phenomena that I'm talking about today, and also sharing your paranormal stories. And I can't wait to do that. But with that being said, I encourage you guys to always stay curious, be open-minded to the strange phenomenon, and most importantly, stay strange.